The elongated swirl quilting design is a great way to add movement and detail to your quilts. Hey, I'm Angela Walters from Quilting is My Therapy, and in this video I'm going to show you just how amazing the elongated swirl design is. I'm going to show you how to quilt it in all different directions to add a lovely texture to your quilt. Then we'll talk about lining it up to make a swirl chain, an elegant looking motif that's the same shape over and over and over again. And to get myself in the right mindset, I'm wearing the perfect shirt for this design because we're going to be doing a lot of echoing. So let's get to it. The all-over elongated swirl design is a fast, fun design that looks really great on your quilts. I've used this design in so many different ways on so many different quilts, from a large all-over design to shrinking it down to use as a filler. This design starts with a nice long swirl, which is kind of why it's called the elongated swirl. I like to quilt mine so that it has a little bit of a hill and ends in a swirl, but you can quilt it any way that you want. So there's my first swirl, and it almost kind of looks like a question mark. Now that we have that first swirl quilted, it's time to echo. This is really going to help build up that shape and help it take up a lot of room. Plus, you've already quilted the main element, so echoing gives your mind a chance to take a break. It's the spacing between these echo lines that will determine the density of the quilting. So if you want it nice and small, shrink those lines closer together, and if you want it to be a big all over, spread them apart. It doesn't matter which side of the swirl you echo. It doesn't even matter how many times you echo. But once you're ready, it's time to add another swirl. And what I'm going to do is quilt it so that it goes in a different direction. Now that that's done, you know the next part, right? Echo. Since this is an all over meander, I want to make sure that there's no noticeable pattern. So making them go in all different directions will help me achieve that. And now that I've got my two echoes finished, let's add another elongated swirl. I'm really going to try to extend it out into the unquilted area so I have room to add those echo lines. And again, trying to make sure that it's going in some different directions. Don't be scared to really extend your swirl out there. Remember, it's not the size of the swirl that's going to determine the density, it's the spacing of those echo lines. So the longer your swirls are, the more space they'll take up. But once I got it, it's time to echo. So now I have my first 3 swirls, and I know it's looking just a little weird, but trust me, it's going to look great. The hardest thing about this design is dealing with these irregular areas that you get in between your swirls. I mean, if we're quilting long swirls, we're going to end up with some of these weird gaps. Well, how do we fix that? I'm pretty sure you know the answer. We're going to echo. I can echo what I've just quilted, I could echo what I've previously quilted, or if the space is too large, I can throw in a smaller swirl. It doesn't matter what I put in that spot as long as I fill it in and try to keep the spacing as consistent as possible. Once you have that area all filled in, you can move on by quilting more swirls. And don't forget, you can use that echoing to maneuver your way around the quilting so you can get to the next area that you want to quilt. Now, as I'm echoing, I'm not worried that my lines are spaced perfectly apart. I'm not even worried if it's a perfect echo of what I've quilted. I'm focused more on making those lines smooth. If my echo lines are smooth, it will look perfect even if it's not. To help you get your echo lines as smooth as possible, look ahead of where you're quilting and trust your hands to bring you smoothly to that point. If you find yourself kind of stuck in an area, just travel your way back on out and continue on. Another thing that will help you keep those echo lines nice and consistent is to use the foot of the machine as a guide. By tracing it along a previously quilted line, that's going to help give you a consistent spacing. Also, as my foot starts to approach a previously quilted line, I know it's time to stop and change direction. Okay, one thing that most quilters struggle with is getting that swirl nice and round. And if that's you, no worries, it means you're almost there. You know how the design goes together, you just have to get moving fluidly throughout it. But one thing that might help is start by making your initial swirl smaller. As we start building up echoes around that swirl, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's harder to quilt a larger echo than a smaller one. So if I start out with a smaller swirl, it's a little bit easier to manage. Also, you don't have to add all these echo lines, just add 1 or 2 and then move on. Now this is really a free-flowing design. That means you're not going to know exactly what it looks like until you're done. So some quilters might have a little bit of a hard time with that. Remember, take it step by step. Quilt your elongated swirl, add echoing, and just make sure you fill in the gaps. Try not to overthink this design. It doesn't matter which side you echo, it doesn't matter how many times you echo, and it doesn't even really matter what the shape of your swirl looks like. Again, the most important thing is filling in the area. And I know, I keep saying that, but it's really important because sometimes when you're learning a new design, you might quilt a couple of the swirls and think, it doesn't look so good. But you have to keep going and you have to see it in the context of the whole quilted area. So keep going, and then when you've filled in the whole area, then take a second and appreciate how good it looks. Now I'll have to say, when quilting the swirl design, one of my worst habits is that I'm not good about repositioning my hands as I quilt. We have the most control when we have both of our hands on either side of the foot. But as I quilt, I don't want to stop and move them, so pretty soon they're all the way up here or back by my body. If you have that bad habit like I do, use each swirl as an opportunity to stop and reposition your hands. This is going to give you so much more control, and it really will make your swirls look better. And at any point, if you're not sure where to go or you're not sure what you're doing, just stop, take a moment to use your finger and just kind of trace out that next step. What that's going to do is help your brain visualize where you're going to go next. Then once you have it down, go ahead and quilt that elongated swirl, add your echoing, and keep going. And remember, when you get those gaps in between the swirls, you're just going to add some echoing or smaller swirls to fill it in. Now I'm using this contrasting thread so that you can really see what I'm doing and where I'm going. But when using this design on your quilts, you definitely want to use a thread color that matches the quilt top. For this design, we want to add beautiful texture, but we don't want the quilting to take away from the quilt. Plus, it'll help hide any mistakes you might make. One question I'm commonly asked about this design is, in the center of the swirl, are the points of those echoes supposed to touch? And my answer usually is, it depends. If it touches, it's supposed to. If it doesn't, then it's not. It really doesn't matter. Sometimes they touch and sometimes they don't, and I'm not really worried about it. And when we're done, we have a beautiful all-over design that adds a little bit of movement, but a lot of texture. Now in this example, what we're doing is trying to quilt those swirls in all different directions. But if we line them up, we can make an elegant motif that is really going to add some wow to your quilt. For the swirl chain, basically I'm quilting all the swirls in one direction. But there are a couple little tips I'm going to share that will make it look beautiful. I'm going to start by quilting that elongated swirl, but this time I'm going to make sure that it kind of has a hill and then ends in a swirl. Something like this. Once I have that shape, I'm going to echo, echo, echo. So coming back out from the center, working my way around, and then echoing again. It really doesn't matter how many times you echo, but it does matter where you end up. So if I am to look at my swirl, I want to end up on the opposite side that my swirl is facing. So if my swirl is facing to the left, I want to end on the right side. This is important because quilting them so that they face away from each other is going to help them fit together nicely. Now this next part is completely optional. It's just something that I like to do when I'm starting out. Where I have that little hill, I'm going to fit in a smaller swirl, and it's going to face away from the first one. Then I'm going to echo my way back around. Now let's pause for a second. If you're thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot keep all this straight, don't worry. I have downloadable quilting diagrams and a tip sheet that will help you. You can find that in the description box below. Now if you want to, you can leave that swirl out. I like to quilt it. I want to end up at that V where the two swirls meet. The V is where you want to be. If I end up there, perfect. If I end up somewhere else, I'm going to use echoing to get over there. So whatever you got to do, echo to get to that V. Once I'm there, it's time to quilt the next swirl. And it's going to be the same shape, except it's going to face the opposite direction. So I'm going to echo around that previously quilted swirl, extend out in front of it, and quilt that swirl so it faces the opposite direction. So really, it's the same shape, just mirror image. The reason I have it extend out in front is because I want this to move in a direction. And the reason that I'm facing it the opposite direction is it just kind of lets the hills of that shape fit together nicely. Now that I have that elongated swirl, you know what to do, right? Echo, echo, echo. And again, it doesn't matter how many times you echo, which side you echo, just keep echoing until you're good, and then end up at the V where those two swirls face apart from each other. That was so nice, let's do it again. I'm going to quilt around that last echo I quilted. I'm going to extend it out in front and have it face the opposite direction. And then echo, 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 and make sure I end up at the V. And as soon as my foot starts to touch those previously quilted echo lines, I'm gonna stop and either change direction or get ready to quilt my next swirl. Let's do another one. This swirl is facing left, so I know the other swirl is going to face right. So I'm gonna echo around that previously quilted swirl, extend out in front, and then echo, echo, echo. But just like the elongated swirl, it's really important to remember that eventually you're gonna fill in around this. It's not gonna be just this swirl chain hanging out in space. So I can't worry about if I'm not loving how it looks. I'm gonna keep going and know that I'm gonna come back later and fill in around it. What's amazing about this design is I'm quilting it in chunks, but when I'm done, it will look like one cohesive chain. This is great for those of us that are working on a smaller throated sewing machine or on a long arm going vertically. That means you don't have to move all the way down and come all the way back just to add an echo line. And this is a beautiful design that can really follow a border or frame an element of your quilt. And it really is a forgiving design. If you happen to make a mistake, just keep echoing around it, get back on track, and continue on. For instance, here, I've quilted my swirl so that it extended out, but I forgot which direction to go and I went left instead of right. Well, that's fine. I'm just gonna echo, 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 build it up, get back on track, and make the next one face away from it. And even if it looks like it's gonna stick out, it really won't when you finish filling in the whole area. Now, quilting the swirl chain is only one part of the equation. I have to decide what I'm gonna put around it. If I've quilted that swirl chain and I really want it to stand out, I want it to be a main element of the quilt, or I'm super proud of how I quilted it, I'm gonna put a smaller design around it that's really gonna squish down that area and make it pop. It could be smaller swirls with closely quilted lines, or even pebbles. And even with just this little bit of filler put around it, you can tell that the swirl chain is really gonna be an element to this quilt. But sometimes you don't want it to stand out too much. Maybe you don't love how it turned out, or maybe you want it to be more subtle on the quilt. For instance, you want it to look like wind or water on your quilt. If that's the case, we're gonna put a filler around it that's similar in density. So I'm gonna keep that spacing the same. I'm gonna add some more echo lines, maybe quilt some swirls, but make them all the same size. And then when you do that, something amazing happens. The swirl chain just kind of blends into the rest of the area. It might seem crazy to think that if you make a mistake, putting more mistakes around it will make it go away, but that's actually what happens with the quilting. Even quilting this in contrasting thread, you can still see that that swirl chain starts to slowly disappear into the filler. But when you're using a matching thread, it's amazing. So check out this class sample that I quilted. It's the same swirl chain across the whole strip. Same spacing, same density, same shape, everything. But on this side, I used a very contrasting filler. These back and forth lines are closer in density. They're going a different direction. That's really gonna make my swirl chain show up. But on the other side, I used more echo lines and more swirls, and you can tell that the swirl chain is less of a focal element. So whether you wanna quilt the swirl chain so that it's like a wow element on your quilt, or if you want something a little bit more subtle to fill in an area, this is gonna be the design for you. Okay, now it's your turn. If you're quilting along with me on the custom panel I designed for the challenge, fill the area highlighted in red with either the elongated swirl or a couple swirl chains with some filler thrown in. And if you're struggling with the design, you can download the quilting diagram and tip sheet where I give you some tips and pointers on how to quilt it. And if you need a little bit more hands-on help, I have an expanded resource that breaks it down step by step by step so that you can have swirl chain success. So what do you think about the swirl chain? Do you have any quilt tops laying around that would look amazing with this design? If so, tell me about it by leaving a comment below. And next week, I'll be back with the last tutorial in this video series where we're gonna take that elongated swirl and add some paisleys around it to make the paisley feather, a design that is so easy, I think you're gonna love it. So until then, happy quilting.